We all begin as a single cell the size of a period at the end of a sentence. How does that cell know how to build a body with 100 trillion cells in it, thousands of different kinds, and each one of them is so complex, nanochemical machinery beyond our comprehension how it works, and encoded is the instruction manual. It's the manufacturer's manual how to build and operate every part of this incredible body made up of 100 trillion cells.
Furthermore, DNA is a three-dimensional molecule that is self-replicating. Each molecule is able to make an identical copy quickly and efficiently. The Lord has even programmed DNA to detect and correct replication errors. These sophisticated capabilities far exceed man's means.
God has created the DNA molecule in such a way that it is self-correcting. There are special proteins called enzymes that go up and down the DNA molecule looking for and making repairs on a minute-by-minute, second-by-second basis. God created us with a DNA code that actually has what we call editase or editorial type enzymes. Just as an editor reads a newspaper or a book looking for mistakes, so God has created special enzymes that go up and down our DNA molecule, repairing the mistakes in ways that are unbelievably complex.
There are many examples in creation of things that demonstrate the biblical God. One would be in our very DNA. Our DNA has information in it. And there is a whole field of scientific study called information science, which studies how information originates, how it's transmitted, and so on. And one of the laws of information science says that information never originates by itself in matter, never spontaneously comes about. Anytime we trace the copying of information back to its source, it always comes back to a mind. And since we have creative information in DNA, that tells me that DNA comes from intelligence. It's not something that could possibly come about through millions of years of mutations and natural selection. That just won't work.
Yet even the DNA molecule is simple compared to cells. All life consists of cells, and each cell functions as a miniature city. When we consider that a human body consists of trillions of cells working together as one unit, we should be in humble awe of our Creator's intimate care and perfect wisdom.
Sound is the source of all creation. Sound and resonance is responsible for everything. By now you should know that sound manifests physical form, and this is the most basic example. I just cannot get enough of it. I can watch it millions of times. Every frequency has its own specific shape, a prime resonance frequency. Are you only looking at a two-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional effect? I think he actually uses rice on a metal plate here. And this brings us to using sound as a tool in technology. Sound creates light. It's very obvious. We know that God said, let there be light, and you can do this yourself by attaching a speaker to an LED light and see what happens. Royal Raymond Drive, you should know by now, that cured with the man that found the cure for all disease with sound and resonance. They were converted to electric impulses, and sound continues to amaze us. Sound can levitate. By now, you would have seen this many times, just a very quick idea that sound actually does levitate things, but this is not how the ancients used to levitate the very big, heavy objects. This is a very different technique used here. This is just pressure waves that can levitate things, very light objects, but it does give you the ability to imagine that sound actually levitates. How I look at it, how much research I do, I keep coming back to one guy that stands head and shoulders above all other researchers and inventors of, I don't know, for how many centuries. and that guy's name is Nikola Tesla. He says if you want to find out the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. That's exactly what I've been sharing with you here. Everything is sound and magneticism, and this is really important.
With every organ, tissue, and bone in a constant state of vibration. This knowledge was mostly lost to antiquity, until recently.
When I was in school, I was taught to think in terms of cells as little bags of salt water and fragile neurons in tissue. But the new science is telling us that the average human has about 50 trillion cells in the body, and every one of those cells has an electrical potential of about 0.07 volts. It is about 3.5 trillion volts of electrical potential that we have access to in our bodies for healing.
Each part of your body has a certain vibration that it needs to have in order to be in a harmonious state, a coherent state, a healthy state. When it gets into a disharmonious state, that's when it gets into a diseased state or illness starts to set in.
When healthy, all parts of the body resonate in coherence with harmonic vibrations, which we could call sound health.
Frequency plus intent equals healing, which means the sound we make, coupled with the intention or the consciousness we put on the sound, creates the outcome of the sound. And this includes our voice.
So we want to use sound in a very coherent, very intentional way to help us heal.
Various brain states can be achieved by stimulating the entire brain, using a technique called brain entrainment.
I can expose you to a sound that's pulsing at a brainwave speed, and your brainwaves will try to time themselves to this drum beat because it's the most dominant one in my environment, and that's called brainwave entrainment.
Ancient spiritual leaders likely used brain entrainment to guide individuals into expanded states of consciousness.
In ancient shamanic cultures, they used to have the drumming or the didgeridoo. The shaman would create a certain rhythm with the drum, like a heartbeat rhythm, for example.
You'll see that the speed of that drum beat is about 5 hertz. It's sort of like, hey, 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 hey. That is about 5 hertz right there. And that means that I'm tapping the drum at a brainwave speed called theta. Theta is where your brainwaves go when you're dreaming in sleep. And that means that if I start pounding this drum, your brainwaves, which are awake in beta function, will slow down and cross over the borderline into alpha at about 13 hertz, 12, 11, 10, 9, and finally get down to this 5 hertz in theta and lock onto it.
And this would then take them into an altered state, and they would go on a shamanic journey, for example.
And if I speed the drum beat up, my brainwaves will follow. If I slow it down, my brainwaves will follow. And we can see all this on EEG.
When I was in school, I was taught that there were 4 brain states, but it was the meditators in the Tibetan monasteries that began to show Western scientists that we're only beginning to understand the brain, that there's much more than those 4 brain states. Now we know there's a brain state that is called gamma, between 30 and 100 cycles per second. When the Tibetan meditators showed the scientists that, they said, okay, we'll rewrite the textbooks. The Tibetans said, well, if we do a different kind of meditation, we can exceed this. And then they learned about a brain state called hypergamma. So what we're beginning to understand is that we are only beginning to understand our potential and our capacity.
I was involved in some testing of brainwave biofeedback equipment, which shows on a computer screen the various levels of the brain waves in real time. This allows one to learn to modify the brainwaves in response to the feedback. I wasn't able to produce any of the gamma frequencies, which are above 40 hertz, except while I was playing the didgeridoo, where the gamma feedback went to the very top level. So perhaps playing this ancient instrument helps to entrain the brain waves to simulate expanded states of consciousness.
We know, for example, that strumming a guitar or stringed instruments can bring a peaceful and calming effect to our cardiovascular system. Wind instruments also bring a sense of peace and calm. Organs can actually organize the cerebrospinal fluid in our spinal column and awaken our consciousness. Violins tend to engender a feeling of compassion.
Listening to or playing music is one of the few things that can light up the whole brain, as seen on EEG scanners. Music connects the corpus callosum, which bridges the right and left hemispheres of the brain, and stimulates the use of the whole brain simultaneously. It can help the brain to go into coherence, which stimulates higher functioning.
Ancient techniques for healing are also available.
You can go to a sound healer and you have some that work with shamanic tools like the drums, the didgeridoo, where you have the crystal singing bowls, Tibetan bowls. There's all kinds of different sound instruments that can be used.
With the crystal bowls, it feels like it's opening up into this almost angelic-like realm of frequency that people feel very open to. They feel almost like there's this divine feminine or angelic energy that is singing to them, and there's something about that that really calms the nervous system.
Every person has a particular net, grid, matrix of energy in their subtle bodies that have particular energetic nodal points that we think of as chakras and acupuncture points, and then energetic connections between them. Probably best known today would be the acupuncture meridians, but there are many others as well known to ancient cultures. And so one of the great secrets of the ancient traditions is to know what types of vibrational qualities to apply to the energy field or to specific energy centers to be able to ripen them like a plant growing from a seed.
Your body is vibration. It's incredibly receptive to sound, and it's receiving sound and wants to come in resonance with it. Sound vibration is moving through your tissues, through the water of your body. And these frequencies have the ability to move in and act actually as a technology to bring you back into resonance, to bring your body back into harmony.
What inventions and discoveries might arise from this new era of sound science? To begin, we can reduce or even eradicate disease.
We know now that all matter resonates at a specific frequency. And if you look, for example, at a cancer tumor, obviously the atoms in that tumor are resonating at a frequency. If you can isolate the frequency of the atoms in the tumor, and you can use a sound device to create a resonant frequency that actually cancels it out, all of a sudden, you can destroy that tumor, leaving all the healthy tissue around it untouched.
We believe that now all the research that we're conducting is leading us ever closer to a future of sound healing rather than pharmacologic healing, and a new paradigm for medicine itself.
Did you know that there is a frequency connection between our bodies and the Earth's natural rhythm? Well, it turns out that the Earth has its own harmonic pulse, known as the Schumann resonance. To understand this concept, let's break it down. The Earth's surface is surrounded by an electrically conductive layer, known as the ionosphere, approximately 60 to 1,000 kilometers above us. This ionosphere is formed by the ionization of our atmosphere due to solar radiation and cosmic rays. Just like any other electromagnetic cavity, the Earth ionosphere cavity has a natural frequency at which it can oscillate or vibrate. The Schumann resonance is the lowest natural frequency of the Earth ionosphere cavity. So, what creates the Schumann resonance? It is created by global lightning activity, which serves as a powerful force for electromagnetic waves to resonate within the cavity. The lightning discharges generate waves that bounce back and forth between the Earth and the ionosphere, setting up standing waves with specific frequencies. Why is the Schumann resonance important? Schumann resonance, also known as the Earth's heartbeat, has a frequency of 7.83 Hz. The Schumann frequency of 7.83 Hz is vital for the human brain and body, and prolonged lack of exposure to this frequency can lead to certain problems. Resonance is a phenomenon where two systems vibrating at similar frequencies can influence each other. Studies have found that Schumann resonance can affect brain wave activity, blood pressure, heart rate, the parasympathetic nervous system, and improve overall health. Some theories propose that this resonance might help to regulate or entrain brainwave patterns, potentially leading to a state of relaxation, improved focus, and overall well-being. Brainwaves are electrical impulses generated by the synchronized activity of neurons in the brain, and different frequencies are associated with different mental states. Alpha waves within the brain have a frequency range of approximately 8 to 12 Hz, are often associated with a relaxed and calm state of mind. Activating alpha brainwave patterns through techniques like meditation, deep breathing, or mindfulness exercises may help reduce stress, anxiety, and promote a sense of calmness. Alpha waves have also been associated with improved focus, enhanced concentration, and the generation of novel ideas. It is believed that the relaxed and free-flowing state of mind associated with alpha waves helps to facilitate creative thinking, problem solving, and accessing deeper levels of imagination. When alpha waves are in balance, it can help individuals filter out distractions, improve attention span, and increase their ability to concentrate on tasks. Some studies suggest that individuals in an alpha state may exhibit improved athletic performance, hand-eye coordination, and motor learning. There is ongoing research investigating the potential effects of electromagnetic fields, including the Schumann resonance, on individuals who are more sensitive to electromagnetic radiation. Some people who experience electromagnetic sensitivity claim that they feel positively influenced by spending time in natural environments or by using devices that simulate the Schumann resonance.
Point Nemo is the furthest place on the Earth from land, and it is home to over 300 spacecraft and associated space debris, including the Mir space station, the first ever object assembled in planetary orbit by Russian cosmonauts.
So they claim, look at this trajectory of the rocket. And as I told you, I calculated this distance to be at least 8,000 miles. But if you look at this image right here, the satellite is supposed to be 36,000 kilometers away, 22,000 miles. And it's the size of a car. Okay, so this is Australia right here. That's where the satellite is supposed to be. But remember, this satellite is only 5 to 6 meters big, or 16 feet. If the rocket had gone 12,000 kilometers on the surface of the Earth, that's 1/3 of the way of getting where it's supposed to be. Now here, that's 1/3 of the way. Why didn't this rocket just go straight up? Because they can't leave Earth. They go, they burn everything, and they fall into Point Nemo. The Point Nemo is not exactly right here. It's all this region right here, south of Deuce Island. Okay, so this is exactly where the rocket came this way right here. It never really left Earth, right? So this is a close look at Himawari 8 and 9, both of them. Let's keep on watching the video. You're going to see both of them had the same trajectory. Okay, this is Himawari 9. It's same thing happened to Himawari 8. Even it looks like exactly the same footage. And this time we went straight to the clouds and then changed to CGI. I sped it up 10 times, of course, but it follows the same trajectory, same drawing, very similar to that moon landing by the Chinese. Very similar. The camera is always pointed back, never forward, never looking at the sky. But it goes straight to that region, the South Pacific. And after it burns out the fuel, everything, they say it's catapulted towards this space. Inmarsat has also launched a series of geostationary satellites, and as you see here, the images are very similar to all the other rockets. Instead of going to space, they curve and falls back to Earth, and then immediately they switch to CGI images because they can't really film anything in the so-called space. Everything is done here on Earth. So whenever it goes out of sight here, it immediately becomes a CGI image. So Inmarsat, just like Himawari, doesn't really go to space. We should never believe what they are telling us, seen on TV. It's all camera tricks or CGI. These images clearly tells us that this is a studio and everything there is CGI. These people are not in space. The space station is fake. It's all a swimming pool where they perform everything that they have to do off cameras, and then they film everything, and then they show us images to make us believe they are really in space.
Something that absorbs water on the back of your head. Hey, let's use a diaper. I thought that's a clever solution to this problem.
Yeah, pretty neat. They also came up with the snorkel idea too, you know.
Unexpected turn. The astronauts doing the spacewalks will now be wearing snorkels after the last astronaut who performed the spacewalk nearly drowned when his helmet filled with water.
Just my gut inside me said, that's my dive buddy, and I should be with my dive buddy. That's my dive buddy, and I should be with my dive buddy.
Snorkel cut from rubber tubing.
This snorkel is now installed inside the suit.
Each of these spacewalks is scheduled for 6.5 hours.
You can see this footage right there. He's clearly under the water. He's not in space. That's supposed to be you are traveling in space outside. But this is all CGI, green screen, people hanging in cables, and clearly, and you see there are secret signs there showing exactly what's going on. This is all trickery. This is all trickery. Devil's sign? No, that's, but they do it today. They have done this since this whole space idea was conceived. It's nothing but deception, and it's been going on for many decades, and they are all deceivers. Space is fake. The earth is flat. You either open your eyes or you believe this fantasy, but they are all in the club where they play these tricks to deceive people. Look at all this devil sign. And they used to do different. Before it was only camera tricks. Today, as you see on the right side, you see all the green screen. But before, it used to be camera tricks. They filmed one side first and then the other side and stitched it together and made us believe that stuff. Look at this Charles Chaplin footage. This is all camera tricks. Very smart people doing this in the past. They're still doing this today. And this is how they fake space. This is how everything on TV is faked. Either green screen, blue screen. And I used to wonder myself when I was a kid watching those black and white movies, how did they do that? Well, that's how they did. And it's all camera tricks. And nowadays, CGI, computer generated images. Space is fake. Nothing can leave Earth, as Bill Nye said.
We are talking with Thomas Sims, former NASA data visualizer and designer.
I created Blue Marble 3.0 in 2007, and at that time it was pretty much taking little slices of information, little ribbons of data, and making pictures out of it. I'd add a little bit of curved land over here.
That's cool.
Paint in some clouds over there.
That's neat.
Basically Bob Ross the shit out of it.
What was the turning point?
I just started speculating that the images that were coming in from the moderate resolution imaging spectroradiometer was a bunch of bullshit. NASA was showing me what they wanted me to see, and then I was applying that to a globe model.
So what did you do?
I started watching some high altitude blimp footage, doing some simple math. The horizon is always flat no matter how high up you go. I was zooming in on boats that had apparently gone over the horizon, but with technology, it brought them right back. Looking at Chicago that's 52 miles away that should be under 1,600 feet of curvature. I took a few flights in the southern hemisphere that made no sense at all. Basically all of the things that you would do if you're trying to debunk the flat earth model. And I was like, holy crap, it's flat.
Then what happened?
I told NASA, I said, guys, just give me the original ribbons. And I want to see the original data. And they said, oh no, we trashed those.
One thing I really want your generation to embrace is that the Earth is a closed system. We cannot leave the Earth. There's no place to go. The Earth is a closed system.
The Earth is a closed system.
We cannot leave the Earth.
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 The Earth is a closed system. We cannot leave the Earth.
Although we weren't able to shatter that highest, hardest glass ceiling this time, thanks to you, it's got about 18 million cracks in it. And the light is shining through like never before, filling us all with the hope and the sure knowledge that the path will be a little easier next time.
Well, the scientific purpose is to take particles and accelerate them towards reaching the threshold with the speed of light, and to then collide them, fracturing them into smaller particles for the purpose of trying to determine the basis for creation, trying to find the building blocks of the universe and all known life. And that's what science will tell you in the public arena. But where my research has led me is into the hidden agenda at CERN. And that's really been my calling from the Lord, is to really reveal the truth behind the public agendas at CERN, which is a nuclear research facility utilizing a particle collider.
Now, it's in a giant, somewhat circular shape that covers, how many miles is that whole collider?
Yeah, as you travel along it, you cover 27 miles.
27
17
miles.
kilometers. Well, geographically on the map, it's located on the border between Switzerland and France. It's near Geneva. It's a sovereign state unto itself.
What's a sovereign state unto itself?
That would be a self-governing body. They are much like the Vatican.
So the collider, I never heard this before. The collider is in its own state like the Vatican?
And similar to Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia.
So it's based on, I guess, their theory or research or whatever, that if they crack open atomic, subatomic particles, just crack them open, they are saying, at least publicly, that they can find the secrets to the origins of the universe, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But you say that this is not like speculation. It's from your research, you're saying that behind the scenes, they have a hidden agenda that they're not admitting to the public.
That's correct.
Tell us what your research leads you to believe their hidden agenda is.
Well, it's interesting because today it is no longer hidden.
Oh.
They are not hiding their goals. In fact, they're in a pronounced fashion announcing it. Last year, the previous director of the Collider facility announced that their goal, openly, is to open a dimensional gateway to another dimension. You might call it a portal.
Mm-hmm.
And when you begin to put that in the context of our everyday reality, that seems absurd.
Mm-hmm.
And he also made the statement that we don't know what we will find or what may come through from the other side, but we're willing to risk it.
This is mind-blowing. So we're not talking even really about your research. We're not talking about speculation. So Anthony, this is not a conspiracy theory. This is the published statement of the former head of CERN, and he's talking about. Did he use the word entity? What word did he use?
No, he didn't assign a title to what might come through. He just that he didn't know what would come through.
He didn't know what would come through. So that's kind of ominous.
It is.
We're cracking open a hole in this dimension. Am I correct?
Yep.
And we don't know what would come through. From your research, tell us what you think he was implying, and what has your research revealed about what's really going on?
Well, the research has revealed that they're already in communication with the other side, with entities on the other side.
Wait, stop. This is mind-blowing. The research has shown that they're already in communication with what on the other side?
Well, in my frame of reference, and I think we share this, these would be demonic entities.
And what have they assigned a word to the communication to these beings or whatever are in another dimension?
No, other than to say that these perhaps are our benevolent ancestors from the stars who are coming to solve all of our problems and remove all of our ills from our society.
This is so powerful. This is what you're talking about is a paradigm shift that's just about ready to detonate on planet Earth.
That's correct.
This is going to shake up the faith of man.
Through Facebook pages, there's lots of them where they were talking about the firmament, and they had a military background, and they said, I've never really believed in Jesus or done the whole church thing, but I think I've seen the stuff you guys are talking about here. I just didn't know what it was at the time. This person was in the Army from 1997 to 2000, and they said, I was sent to McMurdo Station in Antarctica. I was a helicopter mechanic and a crew chief, and they had volunteer tours open for guys to go there and work on the helicopters there. When they asked for volunteers, sorry, there's some typos here. I'll try to read it and say what I believe they were trying to say, but it says, when they asked for volunteers, a bunch of us applied, but only me and one other guy got accepted. The application process had a bunch of questionnaires that we had to fill out, and we had to sit for a bunch of one-on-one interviews. It was mostly just a bunch of questions about what our interests and beliefs were. It's weird that they would ask about their beliefs. I was sent to McMurdo Research Station in August of 1998. When we weren't busy de-icing the aircraft and working on them, we had time to hang out with the scientists at the research station. The military unit attached to McMurdo was small, and we didn't have our own separate facilities. We didn't have a PX or a media center. There was no chapel or chaplain, and we didn't have our own separate mailroom. We just had to share the same facilities with the scientists and researchers. So over time, I got to be friends with a few of them. They had 2 different kinds of ice they worked on and studied. This is where it gets interesting. One kind of ice was the normal kind that we've all seen. They took cores of it out of boreholes in the ground. Just like normal ice, it was mostly clear and sometimes white, and it would melt into liquid water if it got warm. The whole area of Antarctica is covered in this kind of ice. But that wasn't their main kind of ice. The only time I ever saw them actually studying normal ice was when a film crew from National Geographic came by. The rest of the time, which was most of the time, the scientists were studying something they called sky ice. This stuff was totally different. We were never allowed to go into the laboratory areas of the station because the labs had to be kept super clean, and they said it would mess up their work if they risked letting too many people in the lab. But one time, one of the researchers that I was friends with showed me a piece of sky ice. You couldn't touch the stuff with your bare hands because it was so cold. And it wasn't clear or white like normal ice. It was solid blue. He said that's why they call it sky ice, because it was the exact same color as the sky. We had to wear thick, heavy going outside gloves to handle it. The stuff was so cold, it would instantly freeze your skin if you touched it. I don't remember what the temperature he said it was, but it was something like hundreds of degrees below zero, way colder than the normal ice that was outside. He had to carry it in a metal bottle that was kind of like a thermos. He let me play with the piece of it for a while. It felt lighter than a piece of normal ice of the same size, like it wasn't very heavy at all. It almost felt like you could throw it up in the air and it would just float back down. But I didn't try that. And it was also a little flexible when I tried to bend it. It didn't break like normal ice would. And even for a small piece, you could see through it. It was solid blue right from the surface. And here's the really weird part. It didn't melt into water. When it got warm, because we had it inside, it just started to shrink. It got smaller and smaller, but my glove never got wet. And there was no water on the floor. The stuff just turned into thin air when it got warm and vaporized. He said that was the reason why they had to study the stuff right there in Antarctica. You couldn't take the sky ice back to America to study it because it was almost impossible to keep it cold enough during transit. And then they shared a verse right here where it says, "And above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne, as the appearance of a sapphire stone. And upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness as the appearance of a man above upon it." And then we continue off where it says, "It would always vaporize into air, and you'd have nothing left when you got back to the U.S., he said. Russian scientists had discovered the same problem when they tried to take the ice back to Russia. So that was why they all had research stations in Antarctica. After maybe 15 minutes of handling the piece of sky ice, it was almost completely gone. Just a tiny little bit was left, and my glove was dry the whole time. I'd never seen anything like it before or since, and that's unusual because I've always had an interest in scientific things. I think that's even why I got selected to go to Antarctica, because a big part of the interview was about science and what I believed about things. So I really thought it was cool to see something I'd never heard of before. The whole time I was at McMurdo, I heard people talking about the wall like that was a special place. It's pretty common to find ice walls and ice cliffs all over Antarctica. The whole place is ice, but it's all just normal white or clear ice. So I asked my friend where they get the sky ice from, and he said it comes from the wall. I don't remember exactly how he described it, but apparently there's a huge wall of sky ice in Antarctica. He said it was hundreds of miles inland from the coast. I never got to see it myself because I was only...
Stop dancing around the question. What did you see in space?
Buddy, brother, friend, comrade. The world is not quite what movies have made it seem. People think you launch a rocket up into the atmosphere and just fly out into the abyss of infinite space. But this couldn't be farther from the reality. Once we go beyond a certain altitude and kind of reach the cusp of our atmosphere, we reach the same barrier time and time again. An impenetrably dense, translucent layer of concrete solid water, of which behind it appears to be a mysteriously dark body of infinite waters that we misinterpret as outer space. It would be through this abyss of water that we could assume the potential to travel to other existing worlds. But without a way through this firmament, we are restricted to fairly limited speculation. It appears as though whatever kind of a god or what have you that created this place did not intend for us to get through that barrier. In the meantime, however, CGI has made for a hell of an illusion of what lies beyond.
Skip forward, stationed to McMurdo. I didn't get to go out on expeditions. He said it was the biggest natural structure in the world. Imagine that. He said that in the 1960s, the U.S. Army had a plan to bore a tunnel into the wall, but they didn't have a boring machine that could handle the super cold temperatures, so they had a whole testing project in Greenland where they developed ice tunnels and invented new boring machines that could operate in super cold temperatures. So this was back when they were going into forming NASA and all the other things that were kind of strange, the Antarctic Treaty, around that time, pretty close to it. And he says, like they did this whole big thing in Greenland for just practice. So it was like they were practicing to bore into the sky ice. I'm not an expert on that, but that's just what he told me. Then, once they had the new boring machine figured out, they brought it to the ice wall, or to the wall in Antarctica. He said that the machine bored a tunnel. I don't remember exactly, it was like 5 or 10 miles into the wall, but that they never broke through the other side of the wall, and that they still don't know how thick the wall is even to this day. And I'm probably not remembering this part correctly, but I think he said that at first the floor of the tunnel was solid rock, but after a mile or two in, the floor was sky ice, like it was sky ice underneath after a certain point, or something like that. And apparently the wall slowly builds itself back up. So it slowly builds itself back up after you cut it, because after a year or so, the tunnel had shrunk smaller all by itself, like a self-healing wound. It starts closing up. They had to leave the boring machine inside the wall because the tunnel shrunk too small to get it back out. And after a few decades, the tunnel was completely gone, like the part of the wall was solid again. He said that now the scientists were trying to use technology to figure out how thick the wall is. He said something about putting earthquake sensors all along the wall, and that somehow you could measure the signal from an earthquake to see how thick the wall is. But he kind of lost me on that part. I never really thought about any of that after I left. It was really weird stuff, but I didn't think it was a big deal at the time. But then a few weeks ago, I saw a map of the wall in Antarctica, except the map was all flat and crazy looking, and it showed the wall going all the way up over the whole Earth. So since then, I've been trying to learn more about the sky ice that I saw and the wall that I heard about, but I can't find anything at all. So now I'm really wondering if there could be a connection here. And that's how I found this group. So I hope that maybe some part of my experience will help someone figure something out. Well, thankful to that person. If they were telling the truth, that is some very interesting information given what we know surrounds us. We know that the firmament's not just made out of ice. It's something special. That could just be something near the foundation to prevent you from going all the way to it. The Father's design is very complex, and he has foreknowledge. He knows what mankind's going to try to do. Those little nuclear bombs they shot at the firmament was nothing to the firmament. They can't break it. They've tried. If they could, they would, but they can't. And this is just one of those stories that confirms a lot of what I had assumed would be going on. I always thought, man, if they are out there and they can go to it, they're probably trying to drill through it, and if they are, how have they not gotten through it already? And that would answer the question for you, because it closes up as you go through it. But this was back in the 60s. There's no telling what they're trying now, mostly guarding it. I'm sure that's the biggest job they have, is keeping us from going there. And if you do go there, you can only go to certain places. It is tens of thousands of dollars for a one-way ticket.
The only way that this Royal Navy ship is going to come looking for you in the ice is if you make it past the 60th parallel. And at the 60th parallel, you will be turned around by just your average Navy warship, whether it's China, America, Russia, whatever country you are close to. When you get to that 60th parallel, that country's Navy is going to send a cruiser or a warship out to turn you around. They are the first line of defense. The final line of defense is this Royal Navy ship right here. Now, I'm just showing you one. I'm not going to take up a lot of time showing you each one of these icebreakers, because there's an icebreaker for each territorial boundary of the 80th parallel, just as there is a warship for each territorial boundary of the 60th parallel. Okay, now let me help you understand that. On a so-called globe, this right here would be the 60th parallel south, and this is where the average Navy warship will turn you around and tell you that you are in maritime waters. Now let me show you what will happen if you make it to the 60th parallel south, and that is nowhere even near the ice wall, and these guys are nowhere near the 60th parallel. I'm just using this video as a demonstration to show you what happens when you enter maritime waters. And the 60th parallel is maritime waters, which falls under the Antarctic Treaty.
He will yield. He'd be thinking, that cheeky better not cross my bow. Yeah. Stop, Josh. They take it seriously. What did they say? You got to yield. You can't just fucking. They think you're going to charge them. We don't know for sure. They did some. No, they did.
They come back last fall. Yeah, fucking talk to them.
Actually going around. He's turning. Stop. He's turning. He is actually turning.
So he's going to be able to shoot yesterday.
No, he is turning. Fucking hell, what have we done now? It's turning, Josh, just sit still.
He's slowed down, has he?
Yeah, he's really slowed down. No, then we were in trouble.
What for?
It's coming to us. He's got the shits because...
Channel 16, over. 16.
Yeah, go here, mate. These bad boys. Gonna go channel 16. We're heading to the shelf to go. Going that way.
We're just traversing. But they're not really. Is there a helicopter coming at us now?
Are we late? I don't know. What
Just travel. Just go.
Just go.
You sent out the chopper.
That's a drone. Is it?
That's unreal.
Now, like I said, these guys were nowhere near the 60th parallel. I'm just giving you an idea of what happens when you reach the 60th parallel, which is maritime waters. Anytime you enter maritime waters, this warship right here, not this specific one, whichever one is patrolling that territorial boundary, will turn you around. Okay, now that you understand that, On a so-called globe, this right here would be the 80th parallel south, which is basically the whole coast of what you have been taught to believe as the Antarctica. And this is where the Royal Navy icebreaker ship will track you down. Now let's have a look at the 80th parallel on a flat Earth map. Imagine that. The Antarctica turns into an ice wall. And look at that. The 80th parallel is the perimeter of the ice wall, which the Royal Navy icebreaker protects. And like I said, there is one of these icebreakers for each territorial boundary.
You've been asleep. We all have. Dreaming in the comfort of what we think we know, cocooned in the lies spun across centuries. But now the veil is lifting. The shadows are creeping in. And the truth about our past, the truth about humanity, is waking us from our slumber. Can you feel it? That gnawing sensation deep within your soul, whispering that everything you've been told is but a fragment of a much darker, more intricate tapestry. The history books, the stories passed down, mere distractions from the reality hidden beneath layers of deceit. Imagine a time, long before recorded history, when beings not of this world walked among us. They weren't just gods or myths. They were real, flesh and bone, possessing knowledge and power beyond our wildest dreams. They came from the stars not to guide us, but to shape us, to mold our destiny for their own inscrutable purposes. We call them by many names: Anunnaki, Watchers, Nephilim. They engineered our very existence, intertwining their advanced intellect with our primitive forms. The ancient texts, shrouded in mysticism and allegory, were their records, their blueprints. We were their experiment, their creation. For millennia, they ruled, unseen and omnipotent. The pyramids, the ziggurats, the ancient megaliths, these were not just monuments to our ingenuity, but relics of their dominion, symbols of their unyielding control over our world. And we, oblivious, worshipped them as deities, never questioning the true nature of their power. But why would they abandon us? Or did they? The signs are everywhere, if you dare to look. The unexplained phenomena, the inexplicable advancements, echoes of their influence still resonate through time. They've never truly left us. Their legacy is etched into our DNA. Their whispers echo in our deepest thoughts, guiding us, manipulating us. Now, as the world teeters on the brink of revelation, we must face the unsettling truth. We are not the masters of our destiny, but the pawns in a cosmic game, orchestrated by forces we are only beginning to comprehend. The truth about humanity, about our origins and purpose, is far more chilling than any nightmare. So, awaken from your dream. Embrace the darkness of reality. The time of ignorance is over. We must confront our past to understand our future. The truth is out there, waiting, haunting, demanding to be uncovered. And once you see it, you can never unsee it.
Wasila,